1% below the meta, but a lot more comfortable. Now, I'm not trying to say I've created something new or exciting. I'm sure these are going to be like a series of builds that a lot of people are playing around with, especially now with Dod-Regnbue. And overall, the meta hasn't really changed. Maybe the chess piece, depending on what it is you're actually trying to do. But there are a few ways now in which we can get basically comparable damage, but have a lot more skills to back it up with, have a lot higher defense, overall more capability and a lot more function within a build, and it's no longer complete full send on the damage and just looking at speedrunners do speedrunny things and being, I wish I could do that. Now, on screen now is the current meta setup. We have Gormagala Helm Beta, Numinous Shroud Beta, Gormagala Vembraces Beta, and then Gormagala Coil, Gormagala Greaves Beta, Talent to Charm, which in total, this gives us Agitator 5, Constitution 4. I'm running Steel Assault because for the moment it's the best Pierce heavy bowgun. I'm a heavy bowgun main, so I've got Tetrad 3, Antivirus 3, Opening Shot 3, Critical Boost 3, Maximum Might 3, Invade Window 2, Witness Exploit 2, Coalescence, Flinch 3, Ballistics, Burst. This gives us an EFR, an effective raw, of 372.56. The build I'm going to be recommending to you, or at least for raw heavy bowguns. I have tested this with elemental heavy bowguns. There are a few things that shift around, but I just want to basically point this change out there, which is basically going to be running 2-piece Gore, 2-piece Numinos, or Zoshia, whatever you want to call it, which is over here. So Numinos Crown Beta, Numinos Shroud Beta. I've then got the Guardian Arc-Veld Vambraces, and then Gormagala Coil Beta and Gormagala Greaves Beta. This gives us Agitator 5, Constitution 5, so this is going to be immediately, theoretically, a higher uptime on bows. Witness Exploit 4, Tetrad, Antivirus, Opening Shot 3, Critical Boost 3, Maximum Might 3, Recovery Speed 2, which is also important, Flinch 3, Ballistics, as well as Burst. You can swap out that one Burst to get Witness Exploit to level 5, but it does end up being slightly weaker, mostly just because it only really works out better on wounds, which is uptime on wounds is at best like 40%. Now for both of these I do have wounds enabled. I can remove the wounds and there's still not going to be like that much overall difference between them. And I've got Power Charm, Demon Powder, Food Attacker +5, Mega Demon Drug. Hopefully you can see all of this, but overall there is about a 2% difference between these two builds. 2%. It's 2.6% when not looking at wounds, and it's 1.5% when looking at wounds, and that's simply just because we have higher Weakness Exploit. Gormagala, the meta is running 2-piece Weakness Exploit, while what I'm proposing is running 4. However, there are immediately some issues with this, and that is something no one seems to be taking into consideration. Uptime. You see, although Gormagala is very powerful, it's not active 100% of the time. Don't get me wrong, it is active a hell of a lot. A full cycle from the moment you start attacking to when you actually get the Gormagala and antivirus buff. At best that I can get it, utilizing a heavy bowgun, is it takes about 5 seconds to activate, and then the buff lasts for 60 seconds. So, what is, if we have a total rotation of 65 seconds, a 5-second downtime? Well, this actually works out to about 7.69%. If we just round this up, just because the calculators don't have it in, if we just round this up to 8%, and then remove that from our 100% total, which means we have an uptime on both Gormagala as well as antivirus of 92%. So if we now factor that in, top one is without wounds, bottom one is with wounds, left-hand side is Gormagala, right-hand side is what I'm proposing. This lowers the gap between them by 0.2%, which granted isn't a lot. So now with a 1.8% difference between them, what other variables do we need to take into consideration? Well, for a start, we have maximum might. Now, I can only speak for myself here. I've tried looking at other people's gameplay footage and what they're doing and their average uptime of maximum might. Depending on how you want to play, I mean, sometimes some builds, like dual blades as well as bows don't even run maximum might, so this is a non-issue for you. However, for those that do, it seems to be about an 80% on average across a very wide spectrum of uptime on maximum might. Some people actually get lower than that despite having maximum might in their build. Their uptime drops to about 50%. But let's just go with about 80 and just plug that in, an 80% uptime on maximum might. So here we are back at this lovely screen. Gore Magala build, as you can hopefully see. Frenzy here is at 92%, and we've got maximum might down to 80. And without wounds, we're at 359.31. With wounds, we're at 364.22. If we come over to this one, again, you can see Frenzy at 92, maximum might 80. Without wounds, we're at 350.42, and with wounds, we're at 360.97. Now, against wounds, we've practically closed that gap. We're already under 1% when it comes up against wounds. However, when we're not looking at wounds, we're still at about a 1.5% difference. The problem now is we still have Agitator, which obviously isn't going to be active the moment you enter the fight, although you can get a really good uptime on it. Again, it's not going to be 100% uptime. So we can lower this. Now the question is going to be by how much? Now, this is going to be completely dependent on how fast you are completing things. I've looked at a lot of speedruns and they seem to have about a 94% uptime on Agitator. So if we drop this to 94 on both, this obviously isn't going to make that much of a difference. But again, without wounds, 356.99, might as well say 357. And then here we're at 3488. And then if we look at wounds, there's 3 effective raw difference between them on wounds. But again, uptime on wounds is iffy at best. Now, just to cut to the chase and show something kind of a little bit unrealistic, if we fully remove uptime of Agitator, maximum might, and Frenzy, as you can see here, they're all at 0. Our raw on the Gore Magala meta is 272.98. And then same again for the 2-piece Numinos 2-piece Gore build. So we're still removing Frenzy, maximum might, Agitator. We're at 271.28. This is a difference of 0.68%. Gore Magala still wins, but by just over 0.5%. Now here is the flip side to it. If we now add wounds into the mix, so Gore Magala again, with the Numinos chest, so 4-piece Gore Magala with wounds is 277.47, whereas 2 Numinos, 2 Gore Magala is 284.24. This is a 2.44% increase. Effectively, the lower your uptime of Frenzy, Agitator, and Maximum Might, the stronger this build actually becomes, although it is a little bit more reliant on wounds, which isn't the best case scenario. However, even without wounds, it's only doing 0.5% less. If you are a speedrunner and you want to go for those juicy times, then absolutely 4-piece Gore. But if you're not, running 2 Gore with 2 Numinos, variations will change. I'll need to check a variety of different builds. Even going to like Elemental Heavy Bowgun, we actually have to run the Gore helmet and then swap out the Gore coil for the Numinos coil just to get coalescence, which does work out stronger than this variant. So there will be changes, but for the moment, my point quite simply is play around with 2 Numinos, 2 Gore, add in your 5th piece to whatever it is you want or what is needed for your build. I'm only running the Guardian Arkveld Van Braces because 1 piece gives you 2 Witness Exploit. This overlap can also just be seen if you remove just Frenzy. So just by removing Frenzy on non-wounds, the builds are basically completely even, with there being literally about a 2.5 difference in effective raw, obviously going to the higher number going to Gore Magala. However, there's also a 10% difference in the overall effective affinity, with 10% higher being on the non-4-piece Gore Magala side, which, although this does mean the Gore Magala one is doing more, we're literally talking points of damage, as in like 0.01, 0.02, which the game may round up or down. In essence, on a Gore Magala build, you'll hit, for example, 30.5, but on the non-Gormagala build, you'll hit 30.4. That's like the difference we're talking. Now, when it comes to uptime of Frenzy, again, if you are a really good player doing those speedruns, you're going to have good uptime. If you're not as talented in the hunting variety, you're possibly going to have less uptime, which means the 4-piece Gormagala build is going to be weaker for you than advertised. I'm not saying it's a bad build, it is a very good build, it is a very strong build, but it is wholly reliant on you actively speedrunning, to be perfectly honest. It is literally a build designed by speedrunners for speedrunners, and if you move away from that, I'm not saying 2-piece Numenos 2-piece Gore is better, it is just directly comparable, as well as offering a lot more comfort. One, the healing over time, which to some might not be a big deal, but it also allows for greater uptime on a lot of other skills, such as weakness exploit, maximum might, constitution, and potentially whatever else you actually want to throw in. If you want to just do away with the random skills that I have thrown in, you actually have 4 level 1 decos for you to play around with and use, which is easily level 3 divine protection. So yeah, that's basically it. I do plan on basically making a collection of builds utilizing 2-piece Numenos, 2-piece Gormagala, and flittering in a few other things here and there, just to try and make competitive builds that are a lot more comfortable for us non-speedrunners. But in the meantime, that is going to be it for this video. Sorry for all of the weird janky transitions, as well as just not showing as much gameplay, but I just kind of wanted to just put this out there. Have fun, good luck, and don't die. It's bad for the health.